Seung-joon tries to escape from the men chasing him but finds himself trapped on the roof of the apartment building. As he looks around, he wonders if this is the end, and why, of all moments, his thoughts keep drifting to Dan. Suddenly, the men catch up to him, and Seung-joon gasps in shock when their leader raises a rifle, and he recognizes him as his former trusted broker, CEO Jeon. Chul-kang receives an email from his North Korean contact explaining that Director Ri has provided a convincing explanation for Jung-hyuk's presence in South Korea, so they were unable to use it to threaten him. Chul-kang is told to kill Jung-hyuk, and that if he can't, not to return home. Jung-hyuk bursts in, aiming his gun at Chul-kang, but NIS agents who have been following him quickly order both Jung-hyuk and Chul-kang to drop their weapons. Chul-kang turns his back to Jung-hyuk, appearing to surrender, while the agents focus their weapons on Jung-hyuk. But Chul-kang pulls a gun from his waistband and whirls to shoot Jung-hyuk. Moving quickly, Jung-hyuk sidesteps out of the line of fire, and Chul-kang is struck by several NIS bullets. Collapsing to the floor, Chul-kang gasps that he has sent evidence of Jung-hyuk and Seri's relationship to North Korea, warning that Jung-hyuk cannot return home without risking his parents' execution. Chul-kang claims that Director Ri chose not to investigate Moo-hyuk's murder because he knew he would find that his own actions were at fault. Voice weakening, Chul-kang says that Director Ri probably wants Jung-hyuk to die here, which puts them in the same situation, so they should die together. He reaches for his gun, but he dies before he touches it. Sick with grief and believing Chul-kang's words about his father, Jung-hyuk raises his gun to his head. But the NIS agents burst in and arrest him before he can take his own life. In the village in North Korea, Oil-suk decides to shave her head out of shame for what she said to Dan's mother while drunk. Suddenly, a commotion outside draws the women's attention, and they rush out to see Myung-suk and Woo-pil being dragged away by two uniformed men. The men claim to be from the State Security Department, but Young-ae demands they send her regards to the department's director, Ma Young-sip. When the men agree, Young-ae reveals that Ma Young-sip is her brother, exposing their lie and forcing them to release Myung-suk and Woo-pil. She then tells them to stay at her place, where it's safe, until Man-bok returns home. It's no surprise that Sehyeong blames Sang-ah for the fact that he's been disowned. However, Sang-ah says that they still have a card to play. She heard from Chul-kang that Seri's bodyguard and the other men who are watching her are all here illegally from North Korea. Chi-soo and Jomok decide to play a prank on little Yoon-dong, telling him that there's a mysterious person inside the vending machine who hands out drinks whenever someone asks. Yoon-dong completely falls for the story, and even apologizes to the machine for bothering it, while Chi-soo and Jomok quietly snicker behind his back. Man-bok and Kwang-bum are caught and arrested right in Seri's room by the NIS agents. Meanwhile, the others scramble to hide, terrified as they imagine horrific torture at the hands of the NIS if they get caught. Knowing he's an orphan with nothing to lose, Chi-soo bravely sacrifices himself by leading the NIS away from their hiding spot. Unfortunately, his plan backfires when he runs into a dead end, and as a result, all of them are ultimately captured and find themselves in handcuffs. Seri staggers down to the lobby just as the teammates are being taken away by the NIS agents. She desperately pleads with the agents to let them go, but the teammates are more worried about Seri hurting herself than their own fate. They shout at her to stay put and not follow. Seri breaks down, sobbing that all of this is her fault. Her stepmother tries to comfort her, but only ends up making herself sick from the stress. Inside the van, the teammates think about Dong-gu from Division 11 and how wildly he acted before. They figure he must have endured brutal torture, so as they approach the NIS headquarters, they steel themselves for the worst, expecting severe mistreatment and harsh interrogation ahead. Instead, they go through a surprisingly mild intake and medical exam. Chisu is then strapped to a lie detector, which makes him assume that electric torture is about to begin. So anxious and upset, he ends up contradicting himself so much that everything he says flags as a lie, rendering the test invalid. Afterwards, he's sent to eat and calm down, where Yundong joins him, feeling surprisingly upbeat after his own questioning. Yundong tells Chisu that the agents already knew everything about him, even showing him satellite photos of his hometown, and that he wasn't tortured at all. Meanwhile, Jung-hyuk is being held elsewhere in the building, refusing to speak or eat. The NIS agents worry about having the son of the director of the General Political Bureau in custody, knowing it could cause a massive scandal if it leaked. They correctly guess that Jung-hyuk plans to shoulder all the blame to protect his parents and Seri. Director Ri learns that Jung-hyuk and the others have all been arrested by the NIS. He feels somewhat comforted knowing that Chul Kang is finally dead and that Jung-hyuk is safe for the moment, but his informant warns him to prepare for the possibility that the situation could change. Seung-joon is taken somewhere by CEO Jeon, who scolds him the entire way for his perceived betrayal. Finally, CEO Jeon tapes Seung-joon's mouth to silence him and orders his men to stop at a hotel for the night. With Sehaeng disinherited, Sejun and Haeji celebrate, feeling they're getting closer to taking control of the family company. Meanwhile, Chairman Yu listens as Sehaeng tries to convince him that Seri's scandal involving a North Korean soldier is far worse than any of his own misdeeds. Chairman Yu snaps that he refuses to discuss family matters with someone who is no longer family. Sangha tells Seung-joon to drop the subject and wait until Seung-joon returns, promising that then they'll have plenty of evidence to use. Sejun and Haeji had been eavesdropping and immediately took this information straight to Seri and stepmom. They warn Seri that Sehaeng and Sangha plan to spin the situation to make themselves look like patriots, but Seri hesitates, asking if they're really planning to bring Seung-joon back. Meanwhile, Seung-joon remains tied and gagged in the hotel room. Once the other men, revealed to be hired by Sehaeng, fall asleep, CEO Jeon quietly slips out of bed and frees him. Seung-joon wanders through the bustling marketplace, searching for a way out of the village. Suddenly, he spots Sehaeng's men scouring the area and quickly hides behind a market stall. A boy taps Seung-joon's shoulder. It's the homeless boy whom Seri had fed when she first arrived in North Korea. The children create a loud distraction by begging, causing Sehaeng's men to swiftly leave the area. The song they sing, about orphans with no one to care for them or mourn their passing, strikes a chord with Seung-joon, reminding him of his own situation and bringing tears to his eyes. Once the coast is clear, Seung-joon confides in the homeless boy that he, too, is an orphan with no one to mourn his passing. Grateful for the boy's help in saving his life, Seung-joon hands him a generous fistful of cash. As he continues on his way, Seung-joon spots a pawnshop and recalls Seri mentioning that she had pawned the diamond ring he once gave her. Meanwhile, the NIS holds a briefing where they review CCTV footage of Jung-hyuk's activities since arriving in South Korea. Though they're searching for any sign that he's a threat, the footage only shows Jung-hyuk performing kind acts, holding doors open for people, retrieving balloons stuck in trees for children, and helping an elderly woman push her cardboard cart up a steep hill. Growing frustrated, an NIS agent tries to interrogate Jung-hyuk again. Jung-hyuk lies, claiming that he came to South Korea to persuade Seri to return to North Korea, along with her money and business expertise. He also insists that his teammates were here only to compete in the military world games and that he had forced them into his business against their will, preventing them from going back home. The NIS agent clearly suspects Jung-hyuk is lying, and when he shares this with Seri, she firmly insists that Jung-hyuk never tried to keep her in North Korea. Instead, she explains that he risked his life multiple times to help her escape back home. She says Jung-hyuk only came to South Korea because Chul Kang was trying to kill her, and all she truly wants is for Jung-hyuk to return home safely, even if that means accepting whatever punishment comes with it. At the next NIS briefing, the agents agree that Seri's version of events seems the most plausible. Their attempts to question the teammates yielded no results, so they decide to bring Seri to speak with Jung-hyuk directly. However, Jung-hyuk coldly ignores her when she tries to talk to him. Seri, undeterred, tells him she knows he's acting this way to protect her. In response, Jung-hyuk admits with a cold edge that he initially used Seri because of her wealth and influence. Though he acknowledges developing feelings for her, he claims his real reason for coming south was to seek revenge on Chul Kang for murdering his brother. Seri breaks down, sobbing that if he takes all the blame, he'll be branded a criminal and never be able to return home. Jung-hyuk responds that seeing her like this troubles him more than the thought of losing his own life. Overwhelmed and exhausted, Seri can't handle any more and collapses in the hallway. The NIS agent gently tells Jung-hyuk that he was too harsh with Seri and informs him that she's being carried out unconscious. At that moment, Jung-hyuk suddenly leaps from his seat and rushes out of the room, catching a glimpse of Seri being hurried out of the building. Overcome with emotion, he finally lets the tears he's been holding back fall as he watches her go. Seri is rushed to intensive care after being diagnosed with sepsis, caused by her still-healing gunshot wound combined with extreme physical and emotional stress. The doctor grimly informs stepmom that there's a high risk Seri might not survive, and all they can do now is wait and hope for the best. Back in the village, the worried ladies fret over the fact that Myung-suk still hasn't heard any news from Manbok. In response, Myung-suk suggests they visit the fortune teller again. Unfortunately, the fortune teller reveals a grim truth: a state security department officer was having an affair, and as a result, his wife was arrested, adding a layer of fear and unease among the villagers. Later, the ladies find Seung-joon loitering outside and kindly invite him in to eat. Clearly starving, Seung-joon devours the food so quickly that Wol-suk jokes someone must be chasing him. After eating, Seung-joon leaves and heads to Jung-hyuk's house, just as Dan calls him, after finding her apartment ransacked and noticing he's gone. She goes to meet Seung-joon and immediately feels flustered being alone with him in the dark, so she lights a candle to chase away the shadows. The absurdity of the situation, being in Jung-hyuk's house with Seung-joon, doesn't escape Dan, and she can't help but laugh nervously. Seung-joon, however, shrugs it off, saying Jung-hyuk wouldn't mind since he was the one who set him up with a broker and even gave him a South Korean phone. Seung-joon then confides in Dan that Seri's brother sent people after him, and he's planning to leave for Europe the next day. He asks her to take him to the airport, and though Dan agrees, she pretends not to be bothered by the fact that he's leaving her behind. Seung-joon mutters with a hint of disappointment that she could at least pretend to try to stop him, even if just as a joke. Feeling overwhelmed by the moment, Dan stands up to put some distance between them, but Seung-joon gently grabs her hand, stopping her. He admits he's been trying hard to live a good life but still feels like he's at the bottom of everything. Then, almost shyly, he slips his diamond ring onto her finger. He tells her it's the very ring he bought for Seri, but that Dan was the one who originally picked it out, and it's the best he can give right now. He adds that if things get better for him down the line and he ever comes back to visit, and if she's still single, he hopes she'll give him a chance. Dan breaks down in tears, and Seung-joon pulls her into a warm hug, promising her that because he likes her, he'll always remember which direction to go. Not having found anything incriminating on Jung-hyuk, the NIS agent turns his attention to the teammates' activities while they were in South Korea. His aide informs him that all their expenses were charged to Seri's card, but it's mostly trivial stuff, small purchases like video game items at a PC cafe, downloads of popular South Korean dramas, all starring Choi Ji-woo, and purchasing Noribang snacks. Frustrated, the NIS agent gives up on digging deeper into the teammates. Instead, he shows Jung-hyuk Chul-kang's laptop, revealing a hacked email that directly contradicts Chul-kang's earlier claim. The message clearly orders Chul-kang to kill Jung-hyuk, disproving the notion that Jung-hyuk's father had abandoned him or wanted him dead. Realizing that his father never gave up on him after all, Jung-hyuk finally breaks down, his emotions surfacing as he quietly asks about Seri's condition. Dan keeps her promise and drives Seung-joon to the airport. But when they arrive, she can't bring herself to say goodbye. Without even glancing at him, she turns and walks away in silence. As soon as her taxi pulls away from the curb, tears stream down her face. Lost in her heartbreak, Dan doesn't see the shady vehicles trailing behind her. Soon Seung-joon gets a call from someone who says that he'll kill Dan unless Seung-joon gives himself up. Seung-joon tries to act unfazed, pretending he doesn't care what happens to Dan. But the caller's voice is cold and serious. He makes it clear that the threat is real. Dan's life is on the line. He gives Seung-joon 1 hour to show up at the location he just texted, or she dies. Seung-joon pauses for just a moment, then rips up his plane ticket and rushes into the nearest taxi without a second thought. Driven by fear and desperation, he races to the warehouse address. As soon as he arrives, he storms inside, rifle in hand, and opens fire at anyone who threatens Dan. His only focus is protecting her, no matter the cost. He takes down most of Sehyung's men, but one of them gets off a lucky shot and hits him in the shoulder. He calls out to Dan that he's okay, then continues shooting, but the last man shoots him in the stomach before Seung-joon kills him. As Seung-joon watches Dan running toward him, a faint smile touches his lips. In his fading consciousness, he thinks, I was wrong. When I die, there will be someone who cries for me. And the fact that it's you, it makes me both sad and happy. Seri lies unconscious, drifting into a dream that takes her back to the moment she was swept into North Korea. In this dream, she already knows everything, every joy and every heartbreak, and how the story will end. Yet, even knowing it all, she chooses to live it again. Because it means she gets to meet Jung-hyuk and love him once more. Jung-hyuk is told that Seri has taken a turn for the worse. He's allowed to go to the hospital, where he can only watch helplessly as doctors work to save Seri's life. He thinks to himself, if I could turn back time, I wouldn't meet you. You wouldn't get to know me, then you would be safe and happy. Seung-joon also has a revelation as he's being rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, than crying over him. If one of us must die while the other lives, if that's fate, it's only right that I die and you live on. A tone sounds, signaling that someone has died, but between Seri and Seongjun, it's left uncertain who lost their battle to survive. Additional scene. While carefully reviewing the CCTV footage of Jung-hyuk, the analysts noticed a series of subtle but telling behavior every time he was near Seri. He consistently positioned himself facing her, almost as if he was always protecting her. He mirrored her gestures, small movements like the tilt of her head or the way she adjusted her hair, and instinctively stepped in to block or fend off any men who came too close. The aide leaned over and quietly told the NIS agent that these were unmistakable signs that Jung-hyuk cared deeply for Seri. The agent, visibly frustrated, snapped back, "Anyone with eyes can see that. It's completely obvious to anyone paying attention."